Australia, home of the possum, cool surfer dudes, strange lingo, now worries mate, fair dinkum, lots of sunshine and the Barneys Barrier Reef. It's the biggest, most spectacular coral reef in the world, and what's more, every creature is linked to another. Just imagine one huge family tree dating back 18 million years. From the minuscule to the mammoth to the miraculous, they're all connected in Barneys Barrier Reef.
What are we wearing, Barney?
If you want to go swimming with the fishes and breathe underwater, Gem, you've got to wear this type of gear.
I just feel so clumsy in it, though.
I know, I need to lie down.
Now, to be fair, you don't see any of the fish out in the ocean wearing all this stuff to breathe underwater. How do they manage it and look so cool, calm and collected?
They do have their own methods of breathing underwater and make it look a lot cooler too. Do you know what? It almost takes my breath away.
Fish breathe water like we breathe air.
I guess that makes sense, but how?
Through their gills, these little frilly things here. They breathe in through their mouth and then out through their gills back into the water. It's a bit like us breathing through our mouths and then out of our ears.
Oh, but I don't get it. Don't they need oxygen to survive like us? What do you reckon, Dr. Barnacle?
Aha, that's correct, Gemma. But they breathe in water from which they take in the oxygen. You see, the oxygen is in the water, and that flap of skin inside the mouth helps to stop the water going back out again.
If I didn't know any better, I'd say that funny-looking potato cod was talking to himself, but he's just breathing then, yeah?
And my, what big lips he has.
Next, please.
Our friend here, the moray eel, is an extreme example of how fish breathe in the underwater world.
He does look ridiculous.
I know, all that opening and closing is one of the reasons people think he's a bit fierce, but all he's doing is breathing. In fact, many eels have this habit of looking like they're chattering away, but they have to use their mouth over time to pump water over their gills, which are on the back of their head, just there.
Oh, I don't get it. So why don't all fish gulp like that then?
Well, because the eels aren't swimming, so water doesn't flow as easily through their mouth and over their gills when they're still. This is why they look like they're either really bad-tempered or talking themselves into a lonely corner. So, eels are connected to our potato cod because they both breathe through their mouths and gills.
From the overly chatty eels to the elegant and sweeping manta rays.
Wow, look at them go. You'd never know they were related to sharks, would you?
No, not much family resemblance at all. But sharks and mantas do share an ability to move and swim with ease, and that's helped by the fact that they both have not 2, not 4, not even 8, but 10 gills each.
What? That's amazing. Well, most fish and creatures like the eels only have 2.
Well, they're so much bigger than an eel, they need much bigger gills to breathe because they need more oxygen. It's like bigger people having bigger lungs. Bigger fish need bigger gills.
So, like our mad moray eel and mates, the mantas have to push water over their gills to breathe, even if the eels have been a little shortchanged on the gill front. So, they're connected by gills.
So I said I wanted blue stripes with a hint of yellow, but I think it's far too much yellow. Ooh, I never.
These two may look like they're having a good old chinwag, but they're actually just having a good nosh up with their pincers and legs. These are squat lobsters.
Ah, they're diddy lobsters.
Actually, they're called squat lobsters, but they're not a lobster.
What? They look like lobsters, they're called lobsters, but they're not lobsters.
They're crustaceans.
That's the same thing.
Well, they're not actually. They're kind of like lobsters, but actually they're more closely related to crabs.
But back to the matter in hand, breathing. Where are their gills? Are they those bits around their mouth?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you, Barnaby? No, those are actually just their mouth parts. While they're noshing and twitching these bits, it does help to push water over their gills right inside this little shell.
So the manta ray has 10 sets of gills, and the lobster has gills inside its shell.
Yes, and they both push water over them to breathe. That's our connection. Barney, meet the barnacle.
Oh, hi there, Barnacle. Hello.
Barnacles are arthropods related to crabs, shrimps and lobsters.
Okay, well, I can't see the family resemblance myself.
Well, unlike their spindly relatives, barnacles are usually fixed to one spot forever.
What, so he has to wave all day? Well, at least he's friendly.
Duh, he's not waving, he's breathing.
Since when does shaking a feather duster in the air count as breathing?
Those are his legs. He opens the hole in his crater and dangles out his legs, and then uses his hairy feet to pick up food and oxygen from the water.
What, he breathes through his feet?
Yep.
Now that I cannot imagine. Go on, son. Wave your hands in the air. Like you want to breathe like a... He's good.
So the not-a-lobster spot lobster waves its mouth parts around to breathe, and the Barney Barnacle sucks in oxygen through his dancing hairy feet.
Okay, so they both dance to breathe. That's the connection.
Now, when it comes to ocean creatures, they do have some very strange ways of doing things, and breathing is one of them. So how do we get from the potato cod to the little foot-breathing barnacle? Well, me and Gemma were having a conversation about how fish breathe underwater, and that led us to Mr. Potato Cod.
Now, with a mouth that big, I'm surprised he actually needs anything else to breathe. It's huge! But like most other fish, he also uses his gills.
Which links in very nicely to our gobby moray eel and his mates. Now, it looks like he's having a right old moan underwater. He's like this. He's not moaning. All he's doing is breathing water through his mouth to his gills so that he can breathe.
And for more supreme gill action, let's not forget the magnificent manta ray. He's got 10 of them. That's like us having 10 nostrils.
That's cool.
Really?
Yeah, you've got to blow your nose in a massive tissue this big.
Ew.
Not as ingenious as our not-a-lobster squat lobster. He moves his body parts so that he gets his fair share of oxygen.
Ooh, a bit like the Barney Barnacle, who waves his skinny legs and feet in the air like he just don't care, just so that he can breathe.
Who's our next bonkers breather?
So they're linked because they are both gill-less wonders. So sea creatures have lots of different ways of breathing underwater, some just a lot weirder than others.
Well, if it's weird breathing you want, Jen, boy, have I got the animal for you.
It's the sea snake, a pretty multi-skilled creature. He has venom, fangs, speed, a paddle tail, nice curvy moves, but he also has no gills. So how do you think he breathes?
Well, judging from the lineup so far, it's anyone's guess. I don't know, his scales? Tail, maybe?
Well, his tail is nearer. The sea snake can actually breathe oxygen through his bottom.
What? Breathing through his bum? Hang on. He's got nostrils, so why does he need to breathe from that end?
Well, he can come to the surface to breathe air through his nose, but while he's underwater, he can breathe through his bum because that's the only area where his skin is thin enough to allow the oxygen through. So bottom breathing is like a backup device to give them a little help when they're underwater. And if he breathed through his nostrils underwater, he'd have a mouthful of water just like us.
But he's diving so deep. How does he manage to stay under?
He just takes a mammoth breath and dives. He can stay underwater for up to 2 hours.
Come on then, should we give it a try?
Go on then.
Ready, big breath?
I reckon about 45 seconds.
I counted 50. Oh, so that means that roughly the sea snake can hold their breath 200 times longer than we can.
Wow, that's
What?
so cool.
But then, of course, they have to go and take it one step further and dive down as deep as 90 metres. That's the height of Big Ben.
Is there anything these animals can't do?
No, not really. They're also deadly. Just 3 drops of their venom can kill 8 people.
Are you serious? Okay, they're fast, speedy swimmers and deadly killers. I won't be getting too close to these slippery serpents.
Yeah, like the jellyfish, which uses its entire body as a lung, sea snakes have no gills. But by holding their breath and using bottom breathing, they have found their own unique way of staying underwater for a very long time. So, both the sea snake and jellyfish have no gills, but have found other weird and wonderful ways to breathe.
Why do I get the feeling that's another bottom?
Bottom breathing. The sea cucumber also breathes through its bum. It's cool, isn't it?
At least the sea snake is discreet about it. Trust you to bring the tone down.
Well, hang on a minute. This is all scientific fact, Gem.
Yeah, well, I think it's just an excuse for you to show a disgusting shot of a bottom breathing. This had better be good.
So look, we've seen fish gills. Well, sea cucumbers have gills in their bottoms.
Go on.
And as you might imagine, the water up there doesn't have the most delicate of tastes.
Oh, now, this is already too much information, but we've come this far.
So, to ensure the oxygen he gets from the water is a little more satisfactory, he has to breathe in and out of his bottom to get a clean flow of water.
Well, I'm with that fish. Not impressed.
Why not? The sea snake does it too.
Anyway, let's get back to the real connections. Who else links to the sea snake? Oh no, what's that coming out of the mud? Barney, this better not have anything to do with bottoms again.
Oh, now would I?
Well, yes, you would.
No, this is just an innocent little mud lobster. And yes, he is actually a lobster. He lives a normal life in the mangroves, building mountainous piles of mud.
What? He's responsible for that pile of mud?
Yep, it's his favourite pastime. He can build them as high as me.
Whoa, not bad for a critter that size. That would be like us building a cathedral all on our own.
I know, it's cool stuff, innit?
Hang on though, don't lobsters usually live underwater?
They do indeed, Gemma. Yes, lobsters have gills like fish, but Mr. Mudshack here has found a way to keep breathing on land, so he can keep up his mud mounding.
What does he breathe then? Mud?
No, one of the reasons he delves through all this dirt is to create a little burrow just below the waterline. That way he always has a little pool of water to bathe in, and as long as his gills stay wet, he can then breathe in oxygen from the air.
Another evolutionary wonder. A lobster that's learned to live on land by breathing air, and a land snake that's learned to live in the sea by breathing through its bottom.
Aha, the wonders of the barrier reef, eh? So both the sea snake and mud lobster have learnt to breathe air in different ways to survive. Okay, who's next?
Forests in the barrier reef?
Yeah, these are mangroves again. They're kind of small forests along the coastline and on islands in the barrier reef.
Okay, well, I'm no tree expert, but I don't get how trees manage to grow here. There's just lots of sloppy, wet mud, and don't they need fresh water and not salty seawater?
Okay, here's the science bit. Listen and learn.
Usually, trees take their air from the soil to breathe, but the mangrove trees have cleverly adapted their roots to act as snorkels.
Snorkels, Dr. Barnacles?
Yes, Gemma. They take in gases from the air rather than the soil, through loads of tiny little holes in their snorkel roots that don't allow water and salt in, but do let in the air. A 3-metre tree can have as many as 10,000 of these snorkels.
Not sure I buy this one, Dr. Barnacles.
Well, let me explain further, young lady. When the tide is low, they take in air through their snorkel roots. And when the tide is high, they can store air in the roots, like lots of little air pockets.
Ah, no wonder it's such a popular hangout.
Mangroves make up a real living community, where all sorts of animals choose to live together on a temporary or long-term basis. Crabs, jellyfish, lobsters, fish, reptiles, birds, and lots of opportunities for mud fights.
Mud-soaked mangroves and muddy lobsters. No prizes for guessing the connection.
Exactly, mud living. Now that sounds like fun. Boo! Look behind you, there's a shark. Are you alive?
Hello?
Ah, the mudskipper. One of the weirdest, boggle-eyed, mud-loving animals in the barrier reef. He'd outstare anyone, this geezer.
Okay, you win, mudskipper.
What's even weirder is that when they do decide to move, they're super quick. Where's he gone?
Yep, they are very weird. They're like statues one minute and gone the next. In fact, they're multi-talented. These little critters can jump, skip, walk and climb. And on land, they use their fins to move about in little hops.
Or skips, like their name. But are they fish or froggy type things?
Well, they're fish, but they've adapted to being on land. In fact, some of them spend almost all their time living on land, returning to water just to fill up storage gills so they can breathe.
Ah, so they carry around their own little oxygen water tanks. Cool.
I know, and they can also breathe through their skin, so they keep their tails in water and roll around in puddles to keep their skin wet. The mangrove trees and the mud-loving mudskipper both are lucky enough to have their own personal breathing equipment. The trees with their little air pockets, and the mudskipper with their own personal water storage gills. Okay, this is spooky. I can't see anything, but I think I can hear a spaceship. Well, some alien life form.
What you're hearing is the very space-age sound of the minke whales.
Oh, so what, whales talk to each other?
Well, some do, yes. Well, kind of. They don't have vocal cords like us, but they make these sounds from the larynx in their throat.
Well, why do they talk to each other? I mean, they just bob around gulping up plankton. Why the need for conversation?
They're just very social animals, I guess, and like to say hello.
What do you think they're saying?
Nice day for it. Yeah, time. You first. No, I insist.
In fact, they're quite like humans. They also breathe like us, not through their mouths like some other marine animals, but through their nostrils, which are located on their backs.
So how come they don't drown like we would then?
Well, they have a specialist skill called freediving. Their lungs aren't enormous, but they're really good at soaking in air. So when whales take a deep breath, they fill their lungs up with loads of oxygen, so each breath lasts longer.
How come they don't get water up their nostrils?
Well, like the sea snakes, they can shut their nostrils off, so they don't take in any water before they do their deep dives. They've been found as deep as 140 metres.
Wow, that's as deep as the height of the Millennium Wheel. Isn't it weird how trees in the mud and deep diving whales can be linked because they both breathe in the same way?
I know. Mangroves and minkies are connected because they both breathe air, not water.
Oh, look, it's Flipper.
Dolphins are so cool for many reasons. They swim brilliantly, they're great divers, but they also have amazing hearing, 10 times better than us.
What?
I said 10 times better than us.
Whoa.
Very funny.
So, why do they need to hear so well?
Well, they send out sound or sonar clicks that are bounced back when the sound hits an object. That's how they navigate and get around.
That's weird. We've got to try it.
This isn't working really, is it?
No, not really.
Should we get a cup of tea? What does that mean?
2 sugars, please.
So, not as easy as it looks, eh? Everyone loves dolphins, but few people know just how multi-skilled they are. They're super duper intelligent. They can swim fabulously fast, flip fantastically in the air, and totally talk, plus have brilliantly breathtaking breathing methods.
Don't they breathe through that blowhole thing?
No, it's like a giant nostril. And as the dolphin breathes out, the air can leave the nostrils at speeds of over 160 miles per hour.
What? That's the speed of a racing car.
Yeah, because like us, getting water in their nostrils would mean they'd drown. They have powerful muscles that close the blowhole and they dive under again.
They must have to do all this pretty quickly. I mean, they're constantly up and under.
Well, yeah, a dolphin can empty and refill its lungs in less than a fifth of a second.
But that's literally in the blink of an eye. In fact, look, we're going to cut to a picture of me blinking. Our delightful dolphins are linked to our magnificent minkies because they both have nostrils on top of their heads to breathe.
Okay, let's take a look back over our breathing connections.
Now imagine being almost completely made of water and breathing throughout your whole body like our soggy jellyfish.
Yeah, but for me, nothing is as weird as our bottom-breathing sea snake. I mean, he can hold his breath really well too, but bottom breathing? Hang on a sec. Nah, doesn't work for me, and my bum's a little wet. But you know, at least sea snakes are discreet about it. Unlike the sea cucumbers, I mean, those guys have got no shame.
Anyway, at least they have lots of water, unlike the poor mud lobster who has to build mud pies to be able to breathe.
What about our weird air-breathing trees? They've got snorkels as roots.
Oh yeah, or the even weirder muddy mudskipper who has little water storage tanks.
Let's not forget our mega divers, the minke whales, and their cousins, the dolphins. They breathe out of their backs.
Wow. But hang on a second. What about us humans? How do we breathe underwater?
I feel like Catwoman in this.
Well, then that would make me Batman. Now, we are dressed like this for a reason. Unfortunately, we're not lucky enough to be able to breathe underwater. Our lungs just aren't designed to do that. And so, we get a bit of help from our very own special air supply. Attached to this jacket, if you could put it on, Gem. I'm going to give you something very special now. That there is your regulator. And that means that you can breathe underwater.
Brilliant, I sound like Darth Vader. Right then, last one is the moray eel.
Oh, hang on a sec. Oh, wait, Gem. That's cheating. Hang on.
That was amazing!
Oh.
I actually felt like a fish.
I think I am a fish. Now, Jem, were you wondering why we didn't keep floating to the surface?
Well, I did, but I'm thinking these weight belts probably help us out a bit.
They did. They helped us out quite a lot. Because when we breathe in, our lungs fill with air and we move up. When we breathe out, we expel air and we sink. And so, we have to use these weights to keep us at the same level as the fish. But not just the weights. We also have to use this very clever device.
It looks a little bit like a life jacket, but it's actually a buoyancy control device, and it helps you to float by pressing the blue button to fill it with air, and then press the top button, black one, to expel all the air so you can sink.
And so, a combination of weights and the BCD helps us to stay the same level as the fish.
So, what's the connection?
Our connection is with dolphins because we both take our air from the surface and take it down under the water with us. The only difference is how we use it. Dolphins hold their breath and we breathe using these scuba tanks.
So the connection is we both breathe air.
OK, who's next?
So how do fish manage to stay afloat and move around? They don't have a buoyancy control device.
Well, they have their very own internal BCD. It's called a swim bladder.
Ah, so we're wearing all the scuba diving gear to copy what the fish do?
For the most part, yeah.
Ah.
Their swim bladder is just like the BCD we're wearing. It lets the fish hover and swim effortlessly. Their bodies are made of solid muscle, and without this swim bladder, they'd sink like a stone.
But hang on, who pumps up their BCD?
Well, that's the thing, you see. They control their BCD with gas.
When they increase the gas, they rise a bit, and when they decrease the gas, they sink a bit.
Hang on, so they use gas, like that kind of gas?
Well, not quite, but yeah, it's similar.
Oh, thank goodness we've got one of these.
I know, if you did one in your wetsuit, it'd never escape, would it? Oh, no, hang on a minute. That's been in there for hours.
So fish are linked to scuba divers by buoyancy control.
Meet the hawkfish.
Aw, he's very pretty. Is he likely to swim anytime soon?
Nope. Despite being born a fish, he's not been blessed with the ideal equipment to swim off with his fishy friends.
But he looks relatively normal.
Well, he is, except for his lack of a swim bladder. That means it's really hard for him to swim, so he tends to pick a branch of coral to perch on and watch the reef go by. This is one of his relatives, the arc-eye hawkfish.
So he has fish scales, fins and all the rest, but he can't swim very well. That's weird.
Well, you see, that's how important buoyancy is when you're in the ocean. Most marine animals have something to help them get around, but there's the odd fella like this that has nothing to help him stay afloat.
Looks like he's got a hawk's eye view of the reef to me.
What an odd pair, though. You know, we've got one fishy floater and one that sinks like a stone.
Swim bladder is the connection between the cardinal fish and the hawkfish. Our next sea oddity is a cephalopod.
A what lepod? Are you sure it's alive, by the way?
A cephalopod, and yes, it's alive. In fact, his relatives have been alive for more than 400 million years.
Huh? 400 million? Wow, what kind of moisturiser does he use? He looks great.
This is a nautilus, one of the ocean's most ancient creatures.
Well, it's very weird, and you still haven't told me what a cellophane pod is.
A cephalopod.
Yes.
It means head, foot. They're mollusks, soft, squishy animals whose heads are attached to their modified feet.
I'm afraid I can't make head or foot of that.
Well, it's all tucked into the shell, and they do have a head because that's where their eyes are.
Well, they don't look like they've got good eyesight bobbing around like that.
Well, it's amazing these guys can see at all. For starters, they're very old and could probably see before anything else could see. And secondly, they can live up to 600 metres deep.
Wow, they look a bit like spacemen bobbing around, don't they?
Well, they're actually moving gases around their little chamber shell to keep afloat.
Huh? Oh, well, that's charming. Clever use of gas, though.
Well, with their ingenious use of gas and a clever bit of jet propulsion, they can journey quite far.
Our space-like nautilus and clumsy hawkfish are connected by their lack of a swim bladder and connect back to our first big breather, the potato cod, because they both have gills.
From bottom breathing to trees with snorkels, breathing in the underwater world is both mind-boggling and bizarre.
Hey, should we do this last reef cap in one breath?
In one breath?
Yeah.
The whole lot?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Wow, what a collection. It's enough to take my breath away. So we started in a logical place with the fish. They breathe through their gills. Easy peasy.
And they make it look cool too, unlike the eels, who have to constantly gulp to breathe. It looks like they're always talking.
And then you've got the magnificent manta rays. They show off with 10 gills and cool moves.
Let's not forget the squat lobsters. They're always twitching and moving to push the water over their shell gills to breathe.
Much like the friendly barnacle, with a similar technique, he breathes through his feet. Oh, I hope they don't smell.
And then, of course, there might be lots of wibbling and wobbling, but the jellyfish don't even have to try. They just soak the oxygen up through the water.
Our snake is an easy diver, but he can also breathe through his bum. Not as much as the sea cucumber, though. He's a proper bottom gulper. Gross!
Well, it's not his fault, and he might not be the cleanest critter around, but I reckon the mud lobster has the most fun with his big mud mansions. How cool.
Well, he is living in exclusive mangroves where trees don't grow from the soil, but through snorkel-like holes in the roots.
A breathing tree. It's very Lord of the Rings, isn't it? But mudskippers don't think twice about leaving the water and going for a bit of a play in the mud.
Minke whales take a deep breath and dive down the height of the Millennium Wheel. Now that is free diving.
And then there were the diving dolphins with their one giant nostril.
Humans have tried too, but as always, nature does it better. We have to use breathing and buoyancy aids to help us swim with the fishes. We just don't look as cool though, do we?
Well, at least we don't have to rely on our own gas to keep us afloat. I wouldn't want to get too close to the cardinal fish with his big gassy bladder.
While the alternative is no transportation at all. The poor hawkeyed hawkfish can't move very far and has to sit there and watch the world go by.
Unlike the ancient yo-yo like nautilus, they bounce up and down because they have their very own gas-filled shell chamber. A bit like jet-propelled spaceships.
What a lineup. Give me some air.
So, something we take for granted, like breathing, is a whole different ballgame for our ocean creatures.
I know! From extreme breath holding to trees that breathe, they certainly show us how it's done. And as for the sea cucumber breathing out of his bottom, how weird. Actually, Barney, how did you manage to do all that in one breath? And what are you doing?
Nothing. I wasn't trying to breathe like a sea cucumber or anything. Just playing in the water, mate. That's all I'm doing.